So, hope everybody bought their seatbelts and buckled up for a wild ride, because I'm just going to read a couple of my favorite suttas, and I'm not exactly sure where they fit into the four Satipatthana, but I'll just let you guys figure that out. So this is an Ajahn Titapanyo favorite. This is Book of the Sevens, the Akara Sutta, number 74. Bhikkhus. In the past, there was a teacher named Akara, the founder of a spiritual sect, one without lust for sensual pleasures. The teacher Akara had many hundreds of disciples, to whom he taught such a Dhamma as this. Brahmins, short is the life of human beings, limited and fleeting, as much suffering, much misery. One should wisely understand this. One should do what is wholesome and lead the spiritual life, for none who are born can escape to death. Just as a dewdrop on the tip of a blade of grass will quickly vanish at sunrise and will not last long, so too, Brahmins, human life is like a dewdrop. It is limited and fleeting. It has much suffering, much misery. One should wisely understand this. One should do what is wholesome and lead the spiritual life, for none who are born can escape death. So, Book of the Sevens has 7 metaphors of how short life is. Second one is, just as when thick drops of rain are pouring down, a water bubble will quickly vanish and will not last long. So too, Brahmins, human life is short, like a water bubble. It is limited, for none who are born can escape death. Just as a line drawn on water with a stick will quickly vanish and will not last long, so too, Brahmins, human life is like a line drawn on water with a stick. It is limited, for none who are born can escape death. Just as a river flowing down from a mountain, going a long distance with a swift current, carrying along much floatism, will not stand still for a moment, an instant, a second, but will rush on, swirl, and flow forward. So too, Brahmins, human life is like a mountain stream. It is limited, for none who are born can escape death. Just as a strong man might form a lump of spittle at the tip of his tongue and spit it out without difficulty, so too, Brahmins, human life is like a lump of spittle. It is limited, for none who are born can escape death. Just as a piece of meat thrown onto an iron pan, heated all day, will quickly vanish and will not last long, so too, Brahmins, human life is like a piece of meat. It is limited, for none who are born can escape death. Just as when a cow to be slaughtered is being led to the slaughterhouse, whatever leg she lifts, she is closer to slaughter, closer to death. So too, Brahmins, human life is like a cow doomed to slaughter. It is limited and fleeting. It has much suffering and much misery. One should wisely understand this, for one should do what is wholesome and lead the spiritual life, for none who are born can escape death. But at that time, bhikkhus, the human lifespan was 60,000 years, and girls were marriageable at the age of 500. At that time, people had but 6 afflictions: cold, heat, hunger, thirst, excrement, and urine. Those who had such long lifespans and who lived so long, and though their afflictions were so few, still the teacher Akara gave his disciples such a teaching: Brahmins, short is the life of human beings, for none who are born can escape death. But nowadays, bhikkhus, one could rightly say, short is the lifespan of human beings, limited and fleeting, as much suffering, much misery. One should wisely understand this. One should do what is wholesome and lead the spiritual life, for none who are born can escape death. For today, one who lives long lives 100 years or little more. And when living for 100 years, one lives just 300 seasons, 100 winters, 100 summers, 100 rains. When living for 300 seasons, one lives for just 1,200 months, 400 winter months, 400 summer months, 400 months of the rains. When living for 1,200 months, one lives just 2,400 fortnights, 800 fortnights of winter, 800 fortnights of summer, 800 fortnights of rains. And when living for 2,400 fortnights, one lives for just 36,000 nights, 1,200,000 nights of winter, 1,200,000 nights of summer, 12,000 nights of rains, When living for 36,000 nights, one eats 72,000 meals, 24,000 meals of winter, 24,000 meals in summer, and 24,000 meals in rains. And this includes the taking of mother's milk and the times when there are obstacles to meals. These are the obstacles to meals. One who is angry does not eat a meal. One in pain does not eat a meal. One who is ill does not eat a meal. One observing the Aposita does not eat a meal. When not obtaining food, one does not eat a meal. Thus, bhikkhus, for a human being with a lifespan of 100 years, I have reckoned his lifespan, the limit of his lifespan, the number of seasons, years, months, and fortnights in his life, the number of nights, days, and meals, and the obstacles to meals. Whatever bhikkhu should be done by a compassionate teacher out of compassion for his disciples, speaking for their welfare, that I have done for you. These are the feet of trees. They are empty huts. Meditate, bhikkhus. Do not be heedless. Do not have cause to regret it later. This is our instruction to you. Next sutta is Book of the Eights. This is 83, and it's called Rooted. And then there's parallels in the books of the Nines and the books of the Tens, and each one has an additional simile for Nibbana. But this one has a particularly poignant footnote that I'll read in a second. Bhikkhus, wanderers of other sects may ask you, in what, friends, are all things rooted? Through what do they come into being? From what do they originate? Upon what do they converge? By what are they headed? What exerts authority over them? What is their supervisor? What is their core? If you are asked thus, how would you answer them? Bhante, our teachings are rooted in the Blessed One. Guided by the Blessed One, take recourse in the Blessed One. It would be good if the Blessed One would clear up the meaning of this statement. Having heard it from him, the bhikkhus will retain it in mind. Then listen, bhikkhus, and attend closely. I will speak. Yes, Bhante, the bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said this. Bhikkhus, if wanderers of other sects should ask you, then he restates the questions. Here we go. Friends, all things are rooted in desire. They come into being through attention. They originate from contact. They converge upon feeling. They are headed by concentration. Mindfulness exercises authority over them. Wisdom is their supervisor. Liberation is their core. If you are asked these questions in such a way, you should answer those wanderers of other sects. So now what does this all mean? There's a cool footnote in the back. This is Bhikkhu Bodhi's Wisdom Publication Edition. So here we go. Brahmali, in a private communication, offers a fine explanation to this cryptic sutta. Quote, I understand Sabbe Dhamma to refer to the world of personal experience. The meaning would then be as follows. All elements of our experience are rooted in desire, chanda mulika, in the sense that we exist due to desire, taking chanda as equivalent to craving. They come into being through attention, in the sense that we only experience what we attend to. They originate from contact, because without contact, we don't experience anything at all. They converge upon feeling, in the sense that feeling is the most important aspect of our experience, the basic motivating factor in everything that we do. They are headed by concentration, in the sense that concentration is a controlling faculty, an indriya, whose lead all elements of our experience must follow. They are under the authority of mindfulness, because mindfulness is another controlling faculty which directs us in whatever we do or experience. All things have wisdom as a supervisor, because wisdom is the chief of the controlling faculties. Wisdom, more than anything else, controls our experience. The last three factors are what allow us to get a sense of being in charge of our lives. The liberation is their core. The most excellent of all things is self-explanatory. End quote. Those are the two suttas I had, and then I was going to read an appendix of Buddhadhama where P.I. Puto clarifies the difference between manas, citta, manas, and vijnanam. It's a little interesting story in that when Robin Moore was about to publish this, P.I. Puto sent him an email and asked, is there anything that you feel is inadequately clear or coherent? And he replied that, where is it? Especially for the English readers, namely the precise definition for Pali words, citta, vijnana, and mano, including the relationship between these terms, along with some associated terminology. Example of vijnana dhatu, the element of consciousness. I brought this matter up with the author earlier already several years ago. My fear has been that these terms may be misunderstood by students of Buddhism, and the misunderstanding consequently may lead to distortions of the teachings. So P.I. Puto followed up with this little appendix, and it's not in the Thai edition, but it's in the very back of the big book Buddhadhama. So here we go. Definition for the term citta. Following the definition of citta is closely related to the definition of mano, as evident from the following passage. The term mano refers to citta, mano, manas, hadaya, pandara, mana, manayatana, mana indriya, vijnana kanda, and mano vijnana dhatu that corresponds to the circumstances. That is what is called mind, mano. In the commentaries, however, citta is normally defined as follows. The term citta is defined as thus. It is called citta because it refers to the meaning that it is fully aware of sense objects. Note that the term be fully aware of is the verb, vijnanati is the verb form of vijnana. This complementary definition need not be given too much importance. It is added here simply as supplementary information. So part B, the distinction between citta, vijnana, and mano. As illustrated above, the meaning of these terms are all basically the same, but in their usage or application, there is some variation in their scope of meaning. The term vijnana is generally used in a restricted sense, reverting exclusively to the factor of knowing a sense object, aramana. It does not include the various kinds of feelings, perceptions, thought, etc., that arise simultaneously with such sense contact. For this reason, it is normally translated as consciousness. One can say that it is a purely technical term. Vijnana refers to the aggregate of consciousness, vijnana kanda, within the five aggregates. It does not include feeling, vedana, perception, sanya, or volitional formations, sankhara, which are the Abhidhamma collectively refers to as mental commentaries. The term citta is used frequently in the scriptures. It was a common everyday term, and it is used both in a restricted, specific connotations and in a general, comprehensive sense in which it intrinsically encompasses other factors. The Abhidhamma uses the term citta in a restricted sense, corresponding to the term vijnana of the five aggregates. As mentioned above, the Abhidhamma refers to the remaining three mental aggregates, namakanda, i.e. Vedana, Sanya, and Sankhara, attributes of the citta arising concurrently with the citta, collectively as cetasika. In everyday language or in colloquial speech, however, it is not necessary to make the distinction separating this factor as the citta and the factor as a specific mental contaminant. Instead, one can speak in a collective sense by using the single word citta, which inherently encompasses the mental contaminants For instance, one can say developed the mind, citta, established the mind, citta, in mindfulness, etc. In everyday language, the term mano or mana can be used as a broad or wide-ranging sense, similar to the term citta, but when this term is used in a technical or restricted sense, it refers to the sense base, ayatana, or sense faculty, indriya, that cognizes a mind objects, dhamma aramana. In this context, the simple terms of manyata and mana indriya are most often used. Moreover, in the Abhidhamma, there is an explicit stating that mano and manyatana is equivalent to the constitution consciousness of becoming, bhavana citta. A citta over and above the five aggregates. As described above, citta in a strict, narrow sense refers to consciousness, vijnana, as part of the five aggregates, and in general, broad sense, in the context of everyday language, citta refers to both consciousness and to its associated mental attributes, feeling, vedana, perception, sanya, and volitional formation, sankhara. The remaining mental factors of the five aggregates to the question whether a citta exists over and above the five aggregates, one can thus respond succinctly, there exists no citta over and above the five aggregates. The only state of reality transcending the five aggregates is what is in Pali as called the khandha vinyamutta, i.e. nibbana. If, however, one includes things that have no inherent existence, one can say that those things beyond or part of the five aggregates are the state transcending the five aggregates, i.e. nibbana, and concepts or designations, because designations are contrived and ultimately do not exist. They are outside of the five aggregates. The Buddha used the expression, the mind reaches the unconditioned. Here, one needs to be careful. People may misrepresent the passage as meaning that the mind, citta, ascending or realizing nibbana transcends the five aggregates. There's of this passage stating that what is meant here is that the mind does not take hold of a conditioned phenomena, sankhara, as an object of attention. Instead, it cognizes or experiences nibbana. When reaching nibbana, the nature of the mind is transformed. This is not ordinary attention, but neither does the mind transform into or become nibbana. That is all that is meant by this expression. So I'll just leave it there for this evening and leave it open to questions for Lampa.
With regard to fourth satipatthana and contemplating the six sense bases, I've kind of, in experience, it feels like an object will arise, say by, a sound will arise, and that's when, the ear sense base can be discerned, but it, in Paticca Samuppada, is talked about like the sense base arises and then the sense contact arises. And so I wonder if it can be, if that is something that you can experience, like the sense base without a sense object, or if that's, if you just, because if experience is just objects bubbling up, one here, one there, and it's not possible to discern.
Yeah, that's what I would say. You know it through inference. You know it through inference, and because otherwise it wouldn't be an experience. It wouldn't be able to experience it. But it's not. It's like trying to look at your eyes. It makes for an impossibility. So it's just that without it existing, and then the conjunction of the three is an external object, the internal object, and then consciousness, then there wouldn't be the experience of contact. So it's and as in that previous sutta that all things converge on feeling. And it's that contact predicates the actual feeling. So these are processes that are happening so quickly that it's really hard to just try to slow it down enough to just experience it on its own. But you certainly can experience it through inference and recognize, oh, this is how it works.
Lumpur, yesterday during the Buddhadhama reading, he briefly touched on samatha and vipassana practice, and he talked about, during the samatha practice, you'll place mindfulness on an object until the mind becomes calm, and then he touched on quite a few times on how in vipassana, sati will hold an object, but then you use analytical reflection to understand the object, and I was just wondering if you could give some examples on how to use the analytical reflection to develop that part of the practice.
Well, you can refer back to my Saturday night talk. So no, that's the classic analytical tool, is that reflection on anicca, dukkha, anatta. So that's sort of classic. It can also be, and as well, it's an analytical tool of the benefit, the drawback, the way out. Also, just say the analytical tool of the dependent origination aspect, how that dependent, how the arising and ceasing of things are dependently arisen, because what you're doing what you're doing with that mindfulness and analysis is to create a clear seeing and clear knowledge that allows the mind to relinquish or to release or see things so clearly that one is no longer enchanted by them. That quality of disenchantment establishes itself.
And if I could just follow that up, can this be done maybe by posing a question about what your mindfulness is placed on, or are there different ways to work with this?
I would just experiment and see what facilitates it. Make it into something interesting and play. Don't just the Ajahn said, contemplate anicca dukkha na. Okay, I go, anicca dukkha na, anicca. You'll just get bored and fall asleep. So it's just, you have to lift it up and answer, okay, what question would be useful, or what angle of seeing would be helpful, and then to experiment and see what works. And that's one of the, and it's been quite a long time since I've read that book Buddhadhama, but one of the really important chapters, I mean there's many important chapters, but one of the important chapters that he really fills out is the nature of yoniso manasikara and the different objects of investigation and say wise attention. And it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, just one quick point that follows up on what Lumpur was saying, those several categories of reflections that you can contemplate on in developing vipassana. Just to, as he said, don't make it an intellectual or academic exercise. Use the reflections to bring it back to personal experience, questions that you can pose to really turn it towards, what is happening in your personal experience. What does, like dependent origination, what is it like when, feeling arises and craving on top of that, too, so that it becomes a real reflection that can develop clear insight. I had a quick question I interested, Lumpur, if you have any further explanation, say on that footnote that that Suddhiko read from Buddhadhama on, manas, citta, vijnana, because I found it actually, I have to say, I found it pretty confusing, and the way he used some of those terms and kind of going back and forth between some of the sutta uses and commentarial uses, and in some ways it almost being at odds with some of the teachings I've heard, say, from some of the other more Western teachers like Ajahn Jeff, Ajahn Sucitto, and how they use the terms and how they define the terms. And so I was just wondering if you had any thoughts about the use of those three terms that can further
My
explain.
thought that came up was that I thought that Suddhiko was rolling the proverbial apple into the Greek mythological wedding party, starting the Trojan War. It didn't clarify a lot for me either.
Yeah, to me it kind of just...
I feel going back and forth between Abhidhamma and Sutta study, because in many places they line up. Some places they don't line up, so it ends up being a bit confusing. Which is, say, one of the problems of in the end, I think it's just important to sort of that it is possible. Say, liberation is possible.
And it's citta that can be liberated. It's citta that is possible to liberate or to be liberated. Yeah, not manas and not vijnana.
Yeah. Citta, that's whenever it's expressed by the Buddha in the suttas, it is citta that is liberated. So it is that, and which is it is a designation.
Thanks so much for those awesome readings. So this is like just spurred from reflecting on the reading. It's not like directly related, but I guess I've been wondering, I was in a conversation with someone and we were talking about like dependent cessation, I think. And basically like, there's like the whole fabrication of existing that happens because we're craving in like all the 12 links too. But then like when the 12 links like fall apart because of like practice and relinquishing craving. So like, I'm just wondering because like when the cessation of the whole like thing is that like required, like a glimpse of that during stream entry, or is it really just like you don't have any doubt that the Buddha's teaching is true?
There's a glimpse of that in the because the glimpse of cessation is the glimpse of nibbana is an existing reality, that is an existing possibility, and it is accessed through really cessation, like the cessation of dukkha is a possibility, and not just a possibility as a thought experiment, but a possibility in real experience. So then the refinement of that takes place as we continue to practice. But there certainly is and when the Buddha describes his his awakening, then he describes it in terms of dependent origination, but then yes, also he describes the cessation, the ending, and oftentimes that gets overlooked. There is a really good sutta that, and I can't remember it's in the connected discourses, or the numerical discourses. Anyway, the sutta where the Buddha points to the different factors of, it goes through dependent origination where it goes through the dependent origination, but then it poses a question, because then it comes to ignorance. What is what's the nutriment for ignorance? And then it's the 5 hindrances, and then what's the nutriment for the 5 hindrances? Then it goes through a whole process of cessation that is predicated on the practice of seeing these different things, and going back to 4 foundations of mindfulness, 7 factors of awakening.
Okay, thanks.
61.
Anguttara 1061.
Yeah. Bhikkhus, this is said, at first, a first point of ignorance, bhikkhus, is not seen such that before there was no ignorance, and afterwards it came into being. Still, ignorance is seen to have a specific condition. I say, bhikkhus, that ignorance has a nutriment. It is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for ignorance? It should be said, the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances, too, I say, have a nutriment. They are not without nutriment. And what is a nutriment for the 5 hindrances? It should be said, the 3 kinds of misconduct. The 3 kinds of misconduct, too, I say, have a nutriment. They are not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for the 3 kinds of misconduct? It should be said, non-restraint of the sense faculties. Non-restraint of the sense faculties have a nutriment, is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for the non-restraint of the sense faculties? It should be said, lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension. Lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension, too, I say, has a nutriment. It is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for the lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension? It should be said, careless attention. Careless attention, too, I say, has a nutriment. It is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for careless attention? It should be said, lack of faith. Lack of faith, too, I say, has a nutriment. It is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for lack of faith? It should be said, not hearing the good Dhamma. Not hearing the good Dhamma, too, I say, has a nutriment. It is said it is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for not hearing the good Dhamma? It should be said, not associating with good persons. Thus, not associating with good persons, becoming full, fills up, and not hearing the good Dhamma. Not hearing the good Dhamma, becoming full, fills up lack of faith. Lack of faith becoming full fills up careless attention. Careless attention becoming full fills up lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension. Lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension becomes full, fills up non-restraint of the sense faculties. Non-restraint of the sense faculties becoming full fills up the 3 kinds of misconduct. 3 kinds of misconduct becoming full fill up the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances becoming full fill up ignorance. Thus, there's a nutriment for ignorance. Just in this way it becomes full. And then, say, bhikkhus, that true knowledge and liberation has a nutriment. They're not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for true knowledge and liberation? It should be said, the 7 factors of enlightenment. The 7 factors of enlightenment, too, I say, have a nutriment. They're not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for the 7 factors of enlightenment? It should be said, the 4 establishments of mindfulness. The 4 establishments of mindfulness, too, I say, have a nutriment. They're not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for the 4 establishments of mindfulness? It should be said, the 3 kinds of good conduct. 3 kinds of good conduct, too, I say, have a nutriment. They're not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for these three kinds of good conduct? It should be said, restraint of the sense faculties. Restraint of the sense faculties, too, I say, has a nutriment, and is not without nutriment. And what is it, the nutriment for the sense restraint of the sense faculties? It should be said, mindfulness and clear comprehension. Mindfulness and clear comprehension, too, I say, have a nutriment, they're not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for mindfulness and clear comprehension? It should be said, careful attention. Careful attention, too, I say, has a nutriment, and is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for careful attention? It should be said, faith. Faith, too, I say, has a nutriment, and is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for faith? It should be said, hearing the good Dhamma. Hearing the good Dhamma, too, I say, has a nutriment, and is not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for hearing the good Dhamma? It should be said, associating with good persons. And there's a couple of other similes about rain filling up droplets on a mountaintop and flowing down into big rivers into the ocean.
So, like, I think I'm misunderstanding what it means by cessation, because, like, you always say, like, cessation of dukkha and, like, all dukkha, and then you get a glimpse of that, and then it's like, okay, so this is an experience, and then there's the refining. But then, like, also when that cessation is, it's like the cessation of this, like, whole network, which involves consciousness. So I feel like usually when I think about or conceive of the cessation experience that I asked about, it's like the cessation of consciousness, but you usually focus on the cessation of dukkha. But then I feel confused because it feels, or like I feel like I hear that or read that it's not like a shutting off, or like it's not like turning off, or like a complete, like, so I'm confused as what cessation of consciousness.
I would say, I mean, just keep it simple. Cessation of consciousness that is tainted by ignorance.
Okay.
Yeah, that's over and over again when I've contemplated the whole dependent origination thing, and sometimes the wording can be very much leading you to thinking of that it's saying the cessation of experience, blotting out of everything. And just exactly what Lumpha just said is the most important thing. It's like it's the cessation of these factors as they are affected by ignorance and suffering. Yeah, it doesn't mean the obliteration of experience.
Okay. I guess I am also getting confused because I'm like reading a certain author's like commentary, and he really emphasizes like the fading of phenomenon in order to see this insight.
Yes and no. And it depends on the author. Because I know of some Buddhist teachers who talk about cessation as basically as a cessation of all experience. And that's not how I was ever taught.
That becomes an annihilationist.
It's so easy to turn into an annihilationist doctrine in that way. And it's something that the Buddha really, that's a fundamental, right from the very first teaching of the Buddha.
Yeah, I think like everyone's on the same page about that. Thank you very much.
Just that one phrase from the Kachanagota Sutta. It's like, for one who rightly sees the arising of phenomena, there can be no holding on to an annihilationist viewpoint.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, and then one who sees the cessation, there's no holding on to an eternalist view. So it's always about what is this middle way that frees the heart from suffering, or from limitation, or from absolute Peace.
Thank you.